This is live because I'm losing my voice, apparently. My name is Matthew Baxter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Stolzner.
And I am Blake Smith. Welcome.
Or are you?
Or am I?
You're an imposter. Yeah, I think for this episode.
This is my conspiracy basement look. So since we're talking about UFOs.
Very chic. Yeah.
Or I could do this. I was showing your husband, look at this. Weird eyes. Look at that. How can science explain this? Okay. That's right.
It can't.
Doesn't want to.
Why would it bother?
Well,
all right, here we are.
In tonight's show, we're going to discuss UFO hotspots. So, I've been thinking about this. What is a UFO hotspot? Because even though you've got locations around the world that call themselves, or people call them UFO hotspots, I think America seems to have more than any other country on earth. The US.
You want to
see something interesting here? I'll show you something interesting. Okay, let me bring this up here. This is actually kind of a world map of UFO sightings. Okay, of where the most UFO sightings happen.
Okay.
As you can see, there's a great big circle around the United States. But look at Australia.
Well, I'm surprised that there's nothing marked on there, or is there? Are they the tiny little dots?
There might be. There's a little dot kind of. But the thing, it's hard to say. But and I don't know over what time frame this takes place, but it does give you a very good idea of what's going on there.
Very good idea.
But then when we talk about the US, this is a little more focused in. You can see that we are kind of bat poop crazy when it comes to UFO sightings. There's a lot.
What do you put that down to? Do you think it's
population density,
availability of drugs?
It's like,
but is it population, or is it that this country believes in UFOs more, or is fascinated with UFOs more? I mean, what's going on? This is quite disproportionate to the rest of the globe.
Flying saucers were born here, so that's our heritage we're talking about. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
it is our heritage. I love
that. May be
I love
the case.
The mug.
That may be the case. Oh, I didn't even see it. He was hiding it from me.
That's right. X-Files.
Okay, yeah.
This is from
your
the
job.
90s when the show was still on its first run. This used to be really cool, and it would be blank, and then when you drank hot liquids would make it change to show the X, which was very cool.
Those things stop working, don't they? Like transition
pretty quickly if you clean them. So if I had this is actually a testament to our sanitation. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Blake, I want to ask you really quickly. I'm sorry, Karen. Blake, I want to ask you really quickly. Remember when we sent you that box of mysteryness that
I sure do.
You opened up? Do you still have that one item that I had sent you in there?
Well, I got a bunch of items like the Pazuzus over here and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure which one you're referring to. But I have a lot of stuff.
There was an alien in there.
There you go.
And
it's probably still in there. I would stand up and go, but I'm wearing one of them internet mullets where it's like all the clothing's on the upper side. I'm just naked down below, so I don't want to show that. So
yeah, believe it. Oh well.
No, I, however, am not in that situation at all.
Oh yeah.
But I do have cool socks on. No, if I can get them up here. Oh, they're part green, so they're going away. Oh, now you see me. Now you don't.
That's a mistake.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, but it's actually UFO abducting cows. So it's
very Colorado.
Yeah. Or Coloradouche, as we like to say.
That's fantastic.
So anyway, Karen, please continue with your much more.
It's good for us to front load the show with all this science and stuff here.
Sciencey stuff, yeah. But so having said that, America, the United States, has more UFO sightings than apparently anywhere else in the world, Australia does have a hotspot as well. Well, it's got a few hotspots, but this one is the hottest of them all. And it is, I believe it's called the UFO capital of Australia. and it's Wycliffe Well. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. Well, Matt, I know you are, but Blake, have you ever heard of that? Even though it's an
I
incredibly
have not.
famous place in Australia. I think we've got a photograph here. There we go. So
now, often this sign is full of graffiti, so they do have to repaint it quite a bit.
Yeah. We watched a video the other night, and someone had written BS on the alien's head. Very
But
mean.
They spelled it out.
They spelled it out. Yeah.
But,
oh, I see.
Yeah,
I see.
you get the picture. Yeah, we don't want to. We want to monetize this one if we can. Or 2 cents of it. So this place it's a stopover on the Stuart Highway in the Northern Territory. So this is truly in the middle of nowhere. It's about 300 kilometers from Alice Springs, from the red center of Australia. And I've got
apologies to all our Wycliffe Well residents, viewers.
Well, I don't know.
Sorry, did you say the red center of Australia?
Yeah, that's what
I don't know what that means.
Call
Soviet.
Well, think in terms of the red rock there, the red earth, red colored earth.
Clay.
Is that Ayers Rock?
Uluru. That's the indigenous term.
Uluru.
Uluru. Yeah, with the
Uluru.
Uluru. Yes.
Yeah. Uluru. Got it.
Yeah, we should probably do an episode on that sometime, because there are a lot of stories surrounding that. But it's an incredibly beautiful place, but very remote. And I've got a friend, another Matt, and he lives in Darwin in the Northern Territory. He moved there a little while ago. And I was going to ask him, have you ever been to Wycliffe Well? And then I figured out the directions, and he's about 18 hours drive from this place. It is just out in the middle of nowhere. And so the town calls itself the UFO capital of Australia, as you can see. And so according to the Sun Herald and a number of other newspapers, it's one of the world's top 5 sites as well for UFOs. Other people say it's the Outback's answer to Roswell as well.
So what happened there? I'm dying to know. Like, why?
Well, because
they have the largest selection of beer in all of Australia.
Well, they've got, I think, over 300 labels of beer when they're fully stocked. So yeah, I think that's part of the reason.
You're not joking. You're serious. They have the most like the most IPAs or most, I should say, is it like the most different brands or
a large
whatever
selection of different labels. So I'm imagining a lot of local stuff, a lot of Australian beers, and imported stuff as well. But it's,
you don't leave drunk, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. So here are some pictures of, they've got, people say it's a great Instagram location, very photo op friendly, lots of aliens, and also Elvis. There's a statue of Elvis there as well.
I got it. There's so much independently brewed beer that has created a absolute gravity well.
A beer well, yeah.
There's a brewer's joke here. So
so the place was started in 1985 by a guy called Lou Farkas. And so he got the idea from a US journal. I'm not sure exactly which one it was, but this journal stated that this town was Australia's hotspot and UFO capital. So he set this place up, and this is from the website. They say you really don't want to go to Wycliffe Well in Australia's Northern Territory and not see a UFO. So they pretty much guarantee that you'll see a UFO. Sightings are so common, they state, that if you stayed up all night, you would be considered unlucky to not see anything. And I've seen a number of videos of people traveling there from all around the world, some people claiming that they saw something and other people claiming that they didn't see anything. And so we saw some photographs of the kinds of UFOs that people see. Matt, did you grab a picture, or did we forget to do that?
I have... wouldn't be a matter of forgetting. It would be a matter of accidentally not giving myself enough time. But this is one that is very similar to what is being seen out there. So very strange. And I do want to discuss more about this particular photo a little later, because it's a very popular kind of style of UFO photo that is taken, and definitely want to talk about it.
Well, yeah, okay. And so this does look exactly like the the kinds of photographs that we saw on YouTube and photographs that we've seen online of the kinds of unidentified flying objects that people see from Wycliffe Well. And I mean, I will admit UFOs aren't my specialty. I think you guys have a lot more experience with this topic than me, but I pretty much recognized it as being an airplane also, I thought. And so Matt was looking up flight paths around that area, because I thought you've probably got flights from Alice Springs up to Darwin and just other flight paths which are crisscrossing the area. And so people are probably, I mean, it's one of those areas that people will call big sky country, because you can
There's
just
no
see
light pollution.
Oh, just incredible. I mean, I lived in rural Australia for a while in a town called Armidale. It's not as remote as this place, but people would call it big sky country for that reason. You could see the stars, you could see the sky. It wasn't obscured by skyscrapers and bridges and things like that. And you just had a very clear view of the sky. And I think that that's what's going on here. I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing to do but to lie back and look at the stars, and people are seeing airplanes going over. So Matt, I think you saw there was a flight path from is it the Gold Coast to
no, I think it was actually
there's one from like to Bali, wasn't there? And I think it went from
there was one up there. There's one that went to Darwin though, that went right over it. And it was coming out of Victoria, so that would be the big city right there.
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Thank you. Because I was like, it's not Brisbane.
No, that's it.
So,
Queensland.
So I had that accurate, but yeah,
Victoria. Australian viewers are scoffing now, but
yeah.
So there are flight paths going over this little town, and so I think that that's one example of a natural explanation for UFOs.
Working with you for 12 years, Karen, it's like I've left myself in the funny position of, if there's ever a name a list of Australian cities, I'm going to be the only American yelling Humpty Doo, Humpty Doo.
yeah.
Cooper Petey.
Well, yeah, you guys know some pretty obscure towns. Gyra, right?
Yep.
Home of the Gyra ghost. So no, you guys are doing very well, honourary Australians.
But I couldn't remember Melbourne. So
well,
Melbourne.
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed.
Well, we've got to do a show on the Humpty Doo ghost as well. But anyway, I digress. So Wycliffe Well, it's a holiday park.
2 Humpty Doo list.
Oh wow. He didn't even rehearse that one or have that one banked up. That's woof.
Yeah, that's painful. That's
impressive. So I definitely want to get to this place. It's on my bucket list, at least to have a drink. But it sounds like it's a fun place, and I think it's pretty cheap to stay there in the holiday park. And
that sounds
you probably have to stay there because, again, it's in the middle of nowhere. You would have to fuel up. You would have to get something to eat.
Bring extra fuel with you,
and
water.
See a UFO. So,
well, isn't their motto like "There's something out back there"?
I think so.
I think that's what it was.
I like it. So yeah, on the bucket list, I think maybe a trip from Alice Springs sometime. Not to go and see my friend in Darwin though, that's just way too far. I had no idea. Even coming from there, it's quite remarkable how large the country is and how it's hard to fathom the distances. But yeah. Anyway, just lots of people claim that they've seen something there, and yeah, it's just a famous location for being a remote area. So
what do we know about Mount Shasta?
Well, it's sparkling and delicious, I think, is one of the things we know about it.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. I've always wanted to get there as well. You know, when I lived in California, you're talking about.
Yeah, I know it's sort of the birthplace of the American I Am movement, which is kind of a weird theosophical spinoff. And I know that there was a guy who allegedly channeled content from ascended masters that claimed that they were living underneath the Mount Shasta, which was weirdly resonant with the Shaver mysteries later in American history. And I know that Shasta is sort of a nexus point for. It's sort of like the Sedona of the West. Like if you think about Sedona and how they have all the crystals and vortices culture, the Shasta is tied into that. But I'm grossly ignorant about their UFO stuff.
Well,
so
don't we have some like
me.
trans-dimensional Bigfoot and stuff like that there?
Well, of course they do.
Well, I think they're everywhere in America.
It's a nexus. It's a spiritual nexus for the ascended masters to communicate with the rest of us. So yeah, sure, of course.
So I can show you a few lovely UFO photos from there.
Oh, beautiful.
Now, something kind of interesting here. Karen and I decided we were taking a road trip, basically New Year's Day. We're like, we're getting out of town. We're going south and let's just go to Roswell. And then about 5 hours into it with a 7-year-old, we went to Santa Fe. But on the way down there, we did see some of these very UFOs.
Isn't that a lenticular cloud? Is that right?
Sure,
yeah. If you're going to be a skeptic about it, but no, look at some of these UFOs. That it is undeniable.
Woo, that's gorgeous.
Yeah. See, now the thing is
not very smart UFOs.
No, these guys are so advanced.
They know just like a UFO.
Yeah, they know how to make clouds that cover their craft perfectly, and no one would think that it's a UFO. But apparently, some do. Now,
very pretty, anyway.
Yeah, it's very pretty. I mean, this is kind of caused from the mountain. You know, when wind is blowing up against the mountain, there creates
it makes its own weather. Yeah.
So it's pretty cool how it happens. But you know, when you're a kid and you see something you don't understand, your mind goes to the most kind of exciting possibility that it could be, or most exciting explanation. And
what you saw was your mom and dad loving each other very much. Sorry.
Speak for yourself.
I think Dad was hurting her.
No.
The thing is, it sounded like it. The thing is that, you know, you get in that kind of mindset of, you know, the most cool possibility is what it is, and then you just hold on to that. Because, you know, I remember being a little kid and seeing stuff like this, and oh yeah, that's exactly what that is, UFO. And some people never grow out of it, apparently, because it is still very, very widely believed that that's what's going on here, that these are UFOs, but they're not.
It reminds me of a 3D print job gone wrong, but it is beautiful. So.
Yeah.
That's why I had to change my background
too. Yeah.
But which was
another place on the bucket list to get to.
Yeah, totally.
UFOs to see.
No, yeah, I mean, I think there's a pretty big local culture there around New Age stuff. Again, coming out of that sort of I am movement. Of course, the problem is, I mean, I think there's sort of a sad, weird Nazi white supremacist subculture within that culture. So
really,
you know, yeah.
Usually
we haven't really covered it on the show, but yeah, it's not good.
When I think of areas like Sedona, I think of more liberal-minded people. More
Absolutely.
People.
But with Shasta in particular, the American silver shirt white supremacist movement sort of got merged in with this sort of New Age Saint Germain ascended master stuff, and it became this sort of toxic stew of white supremacy and theosophy. Is very peculiar.
That is very unique. Yeah.
Doesn't
sound like
sorry. It's not great.
Areas?
Don't want to bring the room down though. Let's go back to UFOs.
Maybe not on the bucket list
kind
anymore.
Of brought the room down here, but here we go. Blake, you know anything about this place?
Well, let's see. UFO crash site 1947. That could be a lot of places.
I knew
but
that too.
I bet it's New Mexico. What?
Yeah, again, the red clay tipping you off. It is.
Yeah.
New Mexico.
And you've been there, haven't you, Blake?
Well, I've been to Roswell, but you know, there's that whole thing about crash at Corona, crash at Roswell. There's like 3 different places that sort of all have this kind of conflicting lore around UFO crashes. But I have been to downtown Roswell. Yeah. I loved it. I loved visiting there. It was a beautiful little town. I visited in November, so it wasn't hot. I visited a little bit later than the 50th anniversary, which I honestly, we'll probably get to this, but on that particular UFO trip, I was not aware. I was going for other reasons, and so I wasn't aware that I was there at the 50th anniversary.
Oh, like when I went to Disneyland. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kathleen and I have a history of going to places and not realizing there's other giant events going on. We went on
And
a
that's
ghost
why
trip.
it's so expensive. Yeah.
Well, that, and we went to Savannah for just a random vacation. It turned out to be Gay Pride weekend, and we had a fabulous time and met lots of really cool and groovy gay couples and stuff. But we probably could have picked a weekend where it would not have been quite so busy. Yeah.
Maybe never
Exactly.
there. But I think it's interesting. You're just making me think that a lot of these sites are remote. And so that's another feature of these UFO hotspots, and very, very hot as well. So I don't know if that's affecting people's thinking.
Yeah, well,
Anyway.
hydration in it, can certainly be a thing that your body misses.
Well, it's funny because the Roswell crash is one of those crazy ones where the original crash happened. Within a couple of days, they were like, nope, it was a weather balloon. Just ignore this. And then it wasn't exactly just a weather balloon, but it wasn't until, what is it, like 1980, early 1980s, when Stanton Friedman's for revisits, and suddenly everybody's got these new memories of what happened. And they sort of rewrite history, and they are still rewriting histories. Like new stories about Roswell are still coming out now, and it's become a very exciting and important part of the UFO
lore.
What's the right word? Gospel. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
gospel. It's a good word.
So yeah, it's crazy. I shouldn't say crazy. I mean, it's real people experiencing the wonders of human memory, I think.
Yeah.
So
indeed.
Totally. But you went to the museum there?
I did. I loved it. Yeah, it was very cool. It's probably even better now, but in 97, they had a lot of really cool exhibits. And of course, again, dumb old me not realizing I had just rolled into the 50th anniversary. I was actually going out west because of the Heaven's Gate
Gold
thing
Rush.
that had happened earlier in the year.
Right.
And so me and my friend Ted were on a UFO road trip. So we went to Gulf Breeze, Roswell, Phoenix, and San Diego looking for the Heaven's Gate cult house, which we found eventually. But there wasn't much to say. They'd already changed the street names, and eventually they even tore the place down. But yeah, that was the real driver. Well, I guess technically I was the real driver, but whatever.
Designated driver. Well, yeah, I know we've talked a little bit about your road trip over the years with various shows, and I think you certainly got a lot out of that. Oh, yeah.
Almost made it here. I made it that far. I made it to the UFO sign, the extraterrestrial highway sign.
Well, that's good. That's something.
Yeah. And then you can't get closer because of the government, right?
It was raining or actually it was snowing and cold. We were in November again, and it was like we had gone a long way. I didn't realize how far it was from Vegas to Rachel, and it's a long ass drive. It really is. And I didn't make it on my first attempt. We took some photos of the UFO extraterrestrial highway sign and then turned around and left. But Kathleen and I went back in maybe, let's see, 2017, maybe. I think something like that. It
wasn't that long ago. Yeah, it was.
Recent. That's where I got this hat, and I got a Area 51 mug. I went to the little alien and dropped a couple of $100 because I'm an idiot. Yeah. So,
yeah, that T-shirt that Blade has. Yeah.
I had the hamburger. It was delicious. Can recommend. Since you're 300 miles away from the next hamburger, you might as well have one there. But it's really
everything's
good,
delicious. So. Yeah. Well, again, like Wycliffe Well. Yeah.
If you want to relive it, the movie Paul. With I love the intro. That's a very solid representation of the little alien right there. So it's good, worth watching. So
and we've had Don Prothero on the show before talking about Area 51 and how his father worked there. And
oh, really? I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, it's also in Would You Believe It?
What else did we say on our show?
a fabulous book by Dr. Karen Stolzno. Would you believe it? The whole story.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, Blake's story in there. I think you do talk about your road trip as well.
Well, actually,
But-
it wasn't a sleep paralysis. I can't remember. What
Sleep paralysis. Yep.
but
That's
he
one.
also just talks about his road trip as well and comes
Yeah.
into it. Yeah, another
Everything's
place I
connected.
want to go to, but I mean, just how much can you really see? You just can't get very close to
Yeah.
it. and-
Mountains and desert. Yeah. Even by the time we made our first attempt to go to Area 51, they had already closed off Freedom Ridge, which used to be the place you could go and
Right.
take a look at these sort of things. And they
Yeah.
had the government basically annexed it. And if you're sort of a conspiratorial minded person, that's pretty creepy.
The eminent domain kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Says something.
Yeah, there's a
They're
really
hiding
cool.
something.
Well, maybe, and they're hiding awesome fighter pilot stuff, like really
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
aircraft testing.
And
But
aliens.
there's a cool book called
Batteries
Dreamland.
not included. Oh,
No, Dreamland. I think it came out in '99, and it's all about the sort of weird UFO culture and what do you call it? Plane spotting, or like new aircraft culture, and how those two cultures collided along Freedom Ridge. As you had people there looking for aliens, and people there trying to catch sight of the latest new aircraft. And
Mhm.
it always has been suspicious to me that the sort of the stuff that came out with Bob Lazar when he originally claimed that there were UFOs there. A lot of what the problems were clearly there's something flying, but if that were a manned aircraft, it would kill the pilot for all the sudden changes in trajectory. The G-forces would kill the pilot. And then 10 years later, we see all these new drones coming out that don't have a pilot and behave in a low radar profile, incredibly maneuverable way. And I can't help but wonder, could those two things be connected?
Prototypes.
Could we have been seeing prototypes of drones and that sort of thing? I don't know, so.
Yeah, that's a better theory than others.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. And like they say, it's the no drone zone there. So don't go
for
try.
everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, talking about remote places, another place that on our little road trip, Karen and I actually got close to, but ended up not being able to go, was the little place called Hooper, Colorado.
You've been
And,
there before, haven't you?
I have been there before. Yes, this is the UFO Watchtower. Now you can see.
Oh, yeah.
That it has got a big sky.
Yeah.
That is
does.
that a legit picture? Because that's gorgeous.
That's a legit picture.
Yeah,
And the
wow.
thing is you sit and look up at the sky for 30 seconds and your eyes will adjust and you will see meteors all over the place.
Mhm.
They are just going back and forth, and it is a beautiful, but if you don't know what you're looking at, it might seem mysterious. Again, when I was a little kid, I grew up in northern Colorado in a little town called Cowdrey. And again, no lights to pollute the stars.
Mhm.
And you would look up and you'd see these things just darting back and forth. And I had this whole story in my head that aliens were up there fighting with each other. There were ones that were there to protect us, and then there are other ones that were coming in to conquer us. And these ones, when they got in between, where they were shooting back and forth, is just meteors. But like I said, some people grow up and don't grow out of that mentality. Because I was like, 10 at the time. But the UFO Watchtower is very remote. It gets, very hot in the summer and everything. And it's a very interesting place. It looks a lot like a garbage dump in some senses because of all the stuff out there. But that one of those items that I gave you in that mystery box, Blake, was from the UFO Watchtower that I purchased. And I think it was an Area 51 Roswell alien, which I don't quite understand what that means, but maybe I'm remembering the box differently. But anyway, as you can see, it's an interesting place. And this gentleman, this is Dr. Stephen Greer.
It sure
And,
is.
Yep. He was a medical doctor who turned into a psycho, UFO guy.
Yeah.
And one of his big
he does
claims,
was it CE5, the Close
Yes.
Encounters of the
Yep.
Fifth Kind protocol for contacting aliens. Yeah.
yeah,
So he's the one that has written out all the alien languages. Or one of the people.
No, that was, what the heck was his name?
I thought this
Some-
guy had done that too, though, or at least
No,
had some words from alien languages. So
Yeah, his thing's all about the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, the CE5
Yeah.
protocol.
Okay.
He sells like training classes in how to contact and commune with aliens.
And out at
Hmm.
the UFO Watchtower, this was one of the places that he did that, and got to see a little bit of what he does out there, and it is ridiculous. Now he's honed it a little bit over the years, because he started off with saying that you mentally communicate with these beings, and then you signal them with a flashlight,
Which
pointing
is
up at the sky.
really old school. They used to do that back in John Keel's time. That's a
Mhm,
long-standing way to communicate with aliens. Is flashlights.
which that's
yes.
interesting, because that's kind of been co-opted by
Ghost hunters?
paranormal, ghost hunters to communicate with
flashlights?
spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Matt, when you were showing those pictures of the
It's
watchtower,
the best technology.
the latest
that we
thing,
have, yeah. It's,
Geiger counters, and
mhm,
But
mhm.
when you showed us the photograph, it just made me think too of Westcliff and Silvercliff. And we've spoken about Silvercliff Cemetery. It's meant to be the most haunted cemetery in America, in the world. And it's another one of those big sky country places
Yeah.
where, excuse me, there's nothing out there, a very small population of people. And of course, with this particular cemetery, the ghosts were, people would say that they were these strange dancing lights that you would see around the cemetery that would bounce off the tombstones, and that the lights went back to miners in the 19th century, and all the different theories. But it turns out that they were lights from cars that had been seen since the 1950s, when people are driving around town in their cars with the flashlights from the cars bouncing off the tombstones. But when you're out there too, a lot of people go out there and they camp there for days trying to see something. So we've spoken a lot over the years of the phenomenon prisoners cinema, where you go outside or you're in a cave or something like that, and it's just darkness, and you just stare into this darkness for so long, you end up seeing something. Sometimes it can be stars. It can be like when you sneeze and you see stars temporarily, or have a blow to the head and you see lights. So, I mean, there are lots of different.
Push on your eyes a little bit, and
yeah,
see all kinds of cool
that
stuff.
works too. But there are lots of different theories or reasons why you could be seeing something in the darkness at night. So that's what that
give it enough time, yeah. But
yeah, if you want to see something too.
If you're in the dark, even if you don't do anything to your eyes, if you're just depriving them of light, and you normally are a sighted person, your brain will begin to construct imagery. Like it wants to fill that void, and you'll see all kinds of weird shapes and patterns, and it's quite peculiar.
Yep.
I've heard, but I have not experienced myself.
I have.
That if you take certain drugs,
that
you can also see things, but shapes and patterns and that sort of thing. But this is all still your brain trying to construct something. It wants to be constantly stimulated. So
and I think that's a good point. I'm sure that there would be, since a lot of these places are tied in with New Age theories, I'm positive you would have people going out to these places and dropping drugs and doing all kinds of things. And I mean, outside of the drinking beer at the local pub, I think that you'd get people who take things and go out there just to enjoy the experience and end up seeing things. And
I'm not judging that at all. I just, and I'm not saying that all UFOs
I don't think anybody does that, though.
Yeah.
Here's the blunt reality.
You are beautiful.
Oh boy.
So but Stephen Greer, he's done this around several places. Like it sounds like you know of him as well.
I do.
And I can say he does not like me, which is strange. Who wouldn't like me?
What
But
did you do to him?
so anyway, he's moved. He started doing these several different places, and one of them was at Vero Beach, Florida. And it's the only time that I've seen any like footage or photos of any kind of evidence. And it was these two strange lights that came up out in the ocean while they were all on the beach communicating with them. And it seemed to me to be more of intelligent scheduling, because the Blue Angels were also rehearsing for a big show they were going to do there the next month.
Okay.
So fascinating that they might
So
actually.
you saw angels. That's cool.
Yes.
That's very cool.
Yes. So fantastic work. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that one triangular video. Let me not video,
All right,
but UFO.
like the
Well,
Wycliffe
and
Wells
a
sightings.
good point to remind you that anytime you have three lights in the sky, unless they're in a perfect line, they will always be a triangle. So that's you know, the one of the things I've noticed here. I live in the flight path of a local airport, and I've watched a lot of times when in the evenings when I go for a walk with my kids, the 2 or 3 planes will be coming in on a trajectory to land, and it'll often look like there's a triangular aircraft in the air. And then as we wait, it'll change shape and reorient itself. And that's because it's just 3 different aircraft. And as they change positions to come in for landing, it's almost like there's one big ship, but it's changing shape. It's pretty cool.
It is cool. It's cool.
And there
in and of
is
itself.
that aspect. Yeah, there is that aspect, but there's another one that makes these triangle. And I'm going to use the Air
scale.
Force One.
Yep.
Yeah, this is to scale. So yeah, when you see these in the sky, they look about this.
This is, by the way, the worst kaiju movie ever.
Okay. Anyway, I should have been wearing a green glove. Maybe I can. So anyway, the thing is as these fly in the sky, one of the things that people don't know about airplanes.
Ooh.
Magic. But there's a cow underneath it upside down. So maybe the cow's standing on it. Anyway,
the effect.
as they're flying overhead, they have a light over here. They have a light over here. And sometimes a light over here. Now, not all planes have this, but enough do that when you can't see the rest of the plane at night in the dark, you see 3 dots. And they make a perfect little triangle. And this is the United States one. For those in Australia, I have this one.
Qantas. There we go.
So I can show it on this.
And done a repair job on that one.
It's the same. Yeah, it belongs to a 7-year-old. But and yet I think it still works. So,
very convincing.
Ow.
That was very convincing.
Yeah. But again, you got the 3 dots there that where the little lights are. And as it changes, they all lined up into a line. And oh, look, now they're a triangle again. Oh, one of them disappeared. Shut up.
I feel bad for the passengers of your airline.
No, I know how they feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
they land.
I think that's a pretty good theory for some of the sightings that people are seeing at Wycliffe Well, especially since they're daily. They're going to have the flight paths crisscrossing that area. I think that's
Blake's
pretty
theory,
good one.
Where you've got multiple crafts flying.
Oh, yeah.
And they can change and
very realistic.
Yeah. It is. But that's the problem is at night you can't see what's in between the lights. So it
especially if you've had
really
a few
makes
beers.
things different. But the thing, a few beers really helps with UFO sightings. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, the things that these hotspots have in common.
Well, one of the big ones that I went to look at was Gulf Breeze, Florida, which had been a big hotspot in the late 90s. And the Gulf breeze is like across the bay from Pensacola Naval Air Station. And
Okay.
people were talking about how they could see weird things in the sky on a regular basis. Like, yeah, I bet you can. Because if you don't know what you're looking at and there's naval air flights coming in and out, you're seeing fighter planes and bombers and all kinds of recon planes, all kinds of different sort of things coming out of there, So
Yeah.
that's an interesting case in itself. And I was always a little hesitant to dig into it too deeply in public, just because the people involved have been a bit litigious. They received like a $400,000 book deal to talk about the Gulf breeze sightings in print. And it's like they've defended that very rigorously from despite some pretty amazing things. But on this trip, I will say this, which I loved. We went to the Gulf Breeze, Florida library, and I told them I was interested in hearing, looking into this case. And they're like, oh, and they pulled out this big folder and they had a pull file where they had pulled every local news story for the case for people who were doing research. They're like, here you go. And they just handed me over all the research I would ever need. So I just dumped, I don't know,
Wow.
$25 in photocopies at the time.
Wow. Well, you're making me think too that at Wycliffe Well, you'd asked earlier where these stories came from. And so apparently they date back to servicemen who were visiting the area during World War II. And they kept a book of all of the sightings that they experienced at the time. So apparently that was on display at the little restaurant there until the 1990s, and someone stole it, unfortunately. And nowadays they've just got they've put out a little booklet, and people fill in their experiences there. And apparently it's filled with, they say, thousands of experiences, but
UFO Watchtower is the same way.
The same thing. Yeah. And there are a lot of similarities I'm seeing across these different places. And again, it's just so interesting that there are so many of these places in the US. And I think it just fits in with UFO culture in this country being so popular. Of course, there are going to be more sightings here, and just fewer hotspots around the rest of the world. But certainly it seems like every country has its own hotspot anyway. It seems to be a bit of a universal, but I think probably influenced by the States.
Yeah, absolutely. I do also want to say, in fact, Karen, you and I were talking about this, that I don't fault any of these places for capitalizing on it either. When you're out in the middle of nowhere, you are providing a service for people that want to come out and have this kind of experience and have this kind of fun, and you can possibly make a little bit of money. And I've seen absolutely nothing wrong with that in this sense, because I don't feel like you're gouging someone that's in mourning or something like that, and bereavement. This is just people wanting to have a good time, wanting to have fun. Now, Greer, I think, is a little different. The amount that he charges for his little sessions to speak telepathically to aliens is, much more in this category of, I wouldn't want to say something like fraud, because that could be taken, in a legal sense. So I don't want to say that, but it's pretty harmless. I think what a lot of places are doing, and they're having a good time, and everybody that goes there has a good time.
Well, it reminds me of the topic that we did on strange festivals, and the interview that we did about proto festivals with John Gutowski. I mean, these places have souvenirs and memorabilia, all kinds of things that UFO hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff like that. And I certainly don't blame them for trying to make money off the folklore. And I think a lot of these people do believe.
Karen, is Blake asleep?
He could be.
I'm sitting here. I'm thinking about the parallels between UFO and monster relics and holy relics.
His mind's going to a place.
on pilgrimage. When you're on pilgrimages, you go to a place and then you buy the sort of like little miniature holy relics,
But what if you can have the experience as well,
Exactly. And experience is part of it, and it's like when we go legend tripping, what are we really trying to do? We want to recapture the magic of whatever that experience was, So
well, I think it was this that was making me wonder.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Well, I was trying to like move so that you couldn't see the reflections in my
well,
light in my
yeah,
eyes.
he might have frozen too, so that was a valid question. Or maybe, yeah, he was overtaken by aliens or something.
Also a possibility.
Yeah.
So the fair folk took me, they're saying. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I'm a
But
changeling.
yeah, I do think just even as skeptics, all of these places are fun and interesting, and looks like
Sure.
ghost hunting equipment.
This is you can see some great UFOs with these on.
I'm sure.
And they're really subtle. I mean, you can hardly see that I'm even wearing anything.
You're oculusting after them, I can tell.
Uh,
All right, fine.
So we're I almost went to Aurora in Texas, and it was like much like with actually going
there's
to
one
Rachel.
there too.
It was
There's
just
one
like
here.
it's
Yeah, we've
such
got
a
Aurora,
well,
too.
there is, that's right. But the one in Texas is one of the places where the great UFO airship mystery of the late 1800s, like the 1890s, allegedly
I don't think I
took
know
place.
anything about this. Do tell.
Well, so in the 1890s, there were all these newspaper stories about airships flying over, and it
Okay.
sounded like almost plausible, like maybe there really is a real technology at play here. But then it was like the airships were visiting all these different cities all over the country way too fast. It was really peculiar. Sometimes people talked to the people on the ships, and it was always like some inventor, some industrialist, that sort of thing. And then in
Time
Aurora,
travelers.
well, it was on the cusp of breakthroughs like the Zeppelin. So I mean, it wasn't like, it was the sort of technologically the
I
adjacent
love that
next
band.
thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would just say the adjacent
Get
next
the
thing
let
everybody
out.
was expecting was airships, right? And then
Jefferson?
Yeah.
well, Jefferson, or what's the other one? Led
Mhm.
Zeppelin. Yeah, all those sort of things. Yeah. So
You're catching up to us now.
all the band related inflatable dirigibles. Yeah.
UFO.
Yes. It's like I caught a ride on a silver machine. But anyway, so like in the 1890s
Bon Jovi.
in Aurora, which Aurora was like a dying little town, and suddenly they had this big news story blow up about an airship crashing there, and they had to bury the little alien pilot who was clearly not of Earth. And so later on in the 80s, well, it became a big thing in the 80s because people wanted to dig up the graveyard and find the body of the alien. And it's like nobody had like picked up on the whole thing of these newspaper stories were not true. This was just an entertaining, it was literally like a newspaper meme at the time. It was this idea that was hopping from paper to paper, people one-upping each other with fantastic stories about airships. And so Daniel Cohen, who did a lot of the sort of monster books that I grew up with, did a whole book about the great airship mystery. And this is one of the weird coincidences that happened to me when I went on my UFO road trip. I had tried to find the book, and it wasn't really in print at the time, and I couldn't find a copy in my local library. So Amazon at the time would let you order a book if you could provide the ISBN number, but all the databases that would like print out the ISBN didn't exist. So it was a very early time where you could want a thing and you could almost get a thing, but if you couldn't give them the details, you couldn't order the thing. So I go on my UFO road trip. I go all the way out to LA. I go to the house of Forrest Ackerman, one of the great fan people in the world. Like he was one of the co-creators of Vampirella. Really interesting guy. He would open up his house to fans on the weekends. You could go in and take a tour, and he had all these things like the original armature for King Kong and all these great spaceships and stuff. Anyway, we're touring the house, and then we go up to one of the guest rooms, and there on the bookshelf, I see Daniel Cohen's The Great Airship Mystery just sitting there front faced. And I'm like, holy crap, that's the book I've been looking for. And I grab it off the shelf. It absolutely was. I grabbed it off the shelf, wrote down the ISBN number. And when I got back to my computer, back then, no laptop, I had to go wait till I got all the way back over to the East Coast of the US. I put in the ISBN number and ordered it on Amazon. And when they got a copy, they alerted me and sent me a copy. So that was my first big, like, it was really cool on so many levels. Like, it was weird.
I thought you were going to say you stole the book.
I didn't. No, I think he would have sold it to me. Forey was not doing great at the time. It was before he had to move out of his house, but he really liked his book collection, and he was bragging about it because he said, people ask me if I ever read every book in this house. I'm like, well, technically, I have read the first and last word of every book, but that's because when I get the new books, I always read the first word and the last word just so I can say that.
All right.
So
That's interesting. Oh, you're just playing with these now.
And why
Getting
wouldn't
close
I?
to the ends.
Really, why wouldn't I?
anyway,
What
so
suits you.
Aurora,
That's a cool story.
interesting story, weird story. Yeah, it's a cute little town. There's not much there, and there's nothing to the story. And I'm glad we didn't really divert because I would have been disappointed. But I would love to visit sometime. It does seem like it was a story born out of sad desperation and people trying to make the best of a tough time. But the community's still there. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, another place to visit. But yeah, it's amazing. It really does seem like every state. I mean, predominantly New Mexico and Texas and Colorado, but
Nevada.
it seems like every state seems to have its own hotspot or more. But,
well, like there's places I haven't been. I haven't been to Kecksburg. I'd love to go to Rendlesham. That's you got to go to England for that. There's a lot of, but what I found is on all these trips, ultimately you're seeing the place where the story happened, but the story's over. Like it already happened. It took place already. And it's like trying to sort of grab that magic is, it's like chasing the dragon. It's like trying to put the genie back in the bottle. There's like a lot of metaphors about things not going quite right or not getting the thing you want. It's really hard to go to a place where something wonderful and amazing or allegedly mysterious happened and then also have a really wild experience. Like, I mean, that's unusual. But it does sometimes, it feels more like a pilgrimage. You go there and commune, you sort of fill in your mental picture of what people probably saw. But it's very unlikely you're going to go see Bigfoot at Willow Creek or whatever, so.
Oh yeah, but people certainly continue to try in droves and for all of these hotspots as well. I think, can supplant religion for a lot of people, a kind of new age spirituality of its own, and just getting to go to these places like places of worship, really, in a sense, for those who aren't religious as such.
Exactly. Now, one thing I found interesting is I did a little search on just UFO photos. The majority of things that came up were from the 50s. Then you had some in the 60s and 70s, and by that point you were really getting into the Billy Meyer photos being everywhere. But when you look at photos that are more recent, they're terrible. I mean, they were like really cool back in the 50s and 60s and such, I mean, you had these full crafts that were being photographed and, many of them were, hubcaps being thrown up in the air and stuff. But,
we've all done that.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is the ones these days are, it's kind of like ghosts used to be full apparitions when they got
I was going to say,
and then they
you've got the
became
brown
orbs.
lady and the tulip staircase and the black monk and nowadays
same thing. It's the same thing with the UFOs. They've all really gone downhill as our technology has gotten better.
A lot of parallels, indeed.
Yes. It's very disappointing. But like I said, a lot of these hotspots are still fun because of the people there trying to make a buck and turning it into a fun tourist experience. So,
and I think in terms of folklore and history as well, they're interesting.
Well, I mean,
people like us.
Mothman. I mean, we love Mothman because he's sort of a quasi cryptid, but he comes out of that whole Ohio Valley UFO flap, So I mean, it was originally a UFO story and it became a monster story, And I think that's those festivals that we've talked about so many times, and dark tourism and all this stuff. I mean, people want to have that magic in their life. But it would be ideal if they have it not in their house. So going somewhere else and having it and then being able to come home with a t-shirt, superior experience.
Right.
Indeed.
Maybe that's what Stan Romanek did wrong. various things. he
among
did
them,
wrong.
among
Well,
the many things.
among them, yeah, probably not the
Yeah.
worst thing you
But
did, but
yeah, but for a while he did. However, I will give him this. For a while, he did have a coffee cup that he sold,
oh,
and I had one of them, and it actually got stolen. But it had all his
Whoa.
little formulas
Whoa.
for making a wormhole and everything. And
Well,
yeah, I
Those are-
yeah,
had,
so he went from coffee shot to mug shot. That's interesting.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
exactly. Exactly.
oh, ain't
But
that the
yeah,
truth? Yeah.
we had, I think, talked a little bit about this earlier in the show about how, with people that believe in ghosts, they're pretty much, if you say, no, this isn't real, this is what really happened, then they try to one up that situation. Well, what about this then for
Yeah.
proof? And why didn't you show me that first? Kind of thing. But with alien believing people, it tends to be a little bit more of, that's not a real alien. You must be from the government, and they're more likely to shoot you if you've got someone who's a real true believer in aliens. And that's, I've seen that to be true, and they're also very litigious. They will try to sue you. We had San Romanek claimed that I actually went to his house and tried to shoot at him. And no.
Well, I'll say what?
Yeah. And it's like, why didn't you call the police?
Delusional,
Because
yeah.
you were in Fort Collins and I was in Denver. It would have been great had you just called the police if I actually did that. And then, it was either him or Jeff Peckman who was trying to push the UFO or the Extraterrestrial Commission on Denver residents. One of those two claimed that I broke into their house and stole all of their UFO evidence.
That's convenient. Yeah.
Yeah. But I never had a visit from any police that they supposedly made the reports to. So,
Anyway,
so
let's
in
leave
some
that
cases,
there.
if you do the crime, you don't do the time. But
oh, sorry,
know.
state of affairs, that one.
it's a strange world we live in.
It is.
Somebody ought to
So-
sell tickets.
The cover-ups is dangerous. So
Yeah.
in the wintertime, when I think of cover-up, all I can think of is how much all the women in my life want to be covered up with 50 blankets because they're too cold all the time. So I know that's not the same thing, but it is.
This took a really weird turn.
Well, it's
yeah.
we're having
Like
some trouble with the
bedtime.
AC upstairs. Yes. Also true. Also true. So
well, on that note,
Everybody, please, based on what you just heard, please like and subscribe.
right.
leave a comment below as well, and
Refill my
check
cup.
out our other.
Yes, we need to get Blake some
videos.
his AC fixed or whatever it is.
I'm
the
low on
problem is.
Ripple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need some
And,
blankets.
Please, I'm begging you to go to patreon.com/monster talk and help us out there. This
We appreciate your
monetization thing
support.
isn't all it's cracked up to be. So
Yeah, it's a little slow, but
yeah. And we do a lot of work with I said with Monster Talk and all the different things that are attached to that. So
a lot of
any help you
lot
can
of
give is appreciated.
research, a lot of admin, and so yeah, we appreciate your support. But thank you so much for watching the show.
Meticulous artisanal pun construction, all these things.
Yeah, we leave that to Blake.
It all takes money.
Blake's working so hard, he's got to wear sunglasses to the show so
At
we
night.
can catch a
That's
few extra
right.
Z's.
Future's so
So-
bright.
This is my is it Rusty from the
So he can.
what's that show? The Texas one. I'm losing my mind. The King of the Hill. Like Rusty,
Oh,
the
the
conspiracy
Texas
guy.
one.
Yes. Yeah. The one from Texas. Remember that one? Where they had them guys, they were animated.
There was
Somebody
beer
drew
Yeah,
them.
the
in there.
Beverly
They drew
Hillbillies,
pictures,
yeah.
but they drew a bunch of pictures and showed them in a row. And it looked like they was moving around, but it was just an illusion.
Oh,
You
they
know,
all
the one.
ding dang.
We are so
and all.
bad at ending
Talk
shows,
about
aren't
it.
we?
We don't know how to end a show.
But here's
That's
my
our
dismount.
trademark.
What's
That's our
that?
calling card. Let's just put it out. We love you guys, and we look forward to next time.
Seeing you next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. Welcome
Happy
to
New
January
Year.
2023. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.